All right, thank you everyone who's joined us in person and who's attending virtually. It's great to see so many folks, your faces here in person. Great to see so many people logged in online throughout the Near North Side. We're going to go ahead and get started on our, just so we want to respect everyone's time. So in case there are folks here that didn't know that this is actually a hybrid meeting. So we'll be conducting this both in person, and there are individuals who are joining us online. So you'll be hearing from me in person, and you'll be hearing from a variety of folks, and you'll be seeing them on the TV and hearing their voices as well. And so to go ahead and kick off, I'd like to hand it off to the Assistant Director of Single Family Division of our department, Ms. Janelle Young. Janelle?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Janelle Young, the Assistant Director of the Single Family Department and also the Disaster Recovery Team at HCDD. So it's a pleasure and I really appreciate being able to join you this evening. I want to thank each of you for attending the event tonight, whether it be in person or virtually. We also want to thank our partners in this project at the Houston Land Bank and all the support we've received from community leaders, including Council Member Carla Cineros and her office. I want to take a moment to also recognize Romero Fonseca from the council member's office. If you would like to make some opening remarks, please.
He's coming right up, Janelle.
Okay, great.
So thank you, Ms. Young, and welcome everyone here. I'm here on behalf of Council Member Carla Cisneros, and just to express her gratitude for you joining in this meeting tonight. This is such a very important process in this planning process. So she encourages everyone here tonight to please help spread the word. When you leave here tonight, make sure you give them the additional dates that are on the calendar for additional community input. So please help us spread the word. As I said, this is a very important process of this phase. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for those comments. We're glad you're here on site in our offices, and we appreciate you representing the council member's office tonight. At HCDD, we're glad to have worked with community members to extend our engagement campaign, and we appreciate that you all have shared the news with your family, your friends, and neighbors. HCDD's mission is to make investments that serve Houstonians' housing needs and build more equity city by creating safe, resilient homes and vibrant, healthy communities. Our goal tonight is throughout this engagement process is to get community members' opinions on what really makes the Near Northside home so we can make sure that our developments feel like they belong in the neighborhood. We've heard great feedback and so far look forward to tonight's discussion. So the feedback that we've received, we've built into the requirements and requests and we want to make sure developers and it will continue to look for chances to bring more opportunities to Near Northside. So just before I wrap up, I want to just put in a reminder about a few housekeeping items. Please don't forget to mute your phones to reduce the microphone noise. Use the chat box. This is especially for our friends that are virtually. Take advantage of the chat box so we can make sure that your questions and your opinions are documented. We've built in plenty of time for in-person and virtual facilitated discussion. So please stay after the slides are over. Again, thanks for having me tonight, and I look forward to the discussion.
All right, thank you, Janelle. So everyone, we just heard from Janelle, and throughout the rest of the presentation, you'll be hearing from myself, Miss Ann, Ann Haynes, who I just pointed to. Just wave your hand, is here in person if you all want to take a quick glance. And joining us online is Alexandra Miller from Asakura Robinson, who will kind of wind down the last part of this presentation before we get into our facilitated conversation, both in person and online. So very briefly, this is the agenda for today's meeting. We are going to go over the project background together to understand what the development will look like on two different sites. And we'll do a little deeper dive into what these sites look like. We'll talk about the community engagement process, which we are here with you today and online, and we'll continue to be doing through the rest of the month. And then we'll wind down with some key questions that will help guide our conversation together at the end of today's presentation. So you'll have to hear from me a little bit longer about the project background. So I'm not going to read this word for word for everyone here or online. But if you are looking at this, I think a lot of this language is going to be very familiar. So the basis of this was really the work that's already begun with the complete community process. The feedback that occurred there really has guided this slide and the philosophy of what we're trying to do with the development here in the Near Northside. In particular, meeting the complete community's housing goals, right? When we look at these three broad buckets here on the right side of this slide, home ownership, creating that new home ownership opportunity for the current residents, meeting the current community's needs, and also thinking about how do we do this for a variety of incomes. Making sure that when we talk about affordable home options, that people from a variety of incomes are able to partake in this opportunity. So here's a very high-level, brief overview of where we are in the new home development process. So number one, we've identified some sites, which we will show you in just a few slides. And right now we're at step 2, gathering your community feedback. That will lead to what is called a NOFA, where I know I'm not supposed to use acronyms. A long way of saying that is the Notice of Funding Availability for Developers, which is step 3. And so what a NOFA is, in kind of layman's terms, is the playbook that potential developers will have to follow when submitting their potential bids for developing these 2 sites, which we'll talk about. We at the city will specify what we'd like to see in those proposals. And so what's vitally important in this community engagement process is that you will be able to help us shape what these proposals look like. We'll take as much of your feedback as we can that we've heard, and we'll continue to hear, and we'll develop it into the NOFA, and those developers will have to respond to that. Once the NOFA is out, developers will take a look. They will submit the proposals, and then that's what step 4 looks like. The city will look at those proposals. A developer will be selected, and then homes will be built. And then number 5, which is the fun part, selling those homes to residents to move into. And we want to do a little bit deeper dive into the community engagement piece. So this is where we're actually in step 3 of this. So we had a kickoff meeting internally with the city to make sure we're all on the same page. We met with identified leaders of the Near Northside. And now we're in step 3, which is the community engagement process, which really kicked off on June 3rd and will be going through July 21st. This is being done both in person. Of course, everyone here is looking at me in person. We're going to have our facilitated conversation after this. And we also have opportunities online where folks can not only in these hour-long sessions, but we'll have a website which we'll go into where you can leave feedback afterwards. And then finally, on July 29th, we're going to come together again in a hybrid presentation like this, and we're going to recap what we heard from the community over the last, at that point, will be almost 2 months. So that way everyone has a high level understanding of what we heard, and we're all working from the same page moving forward. And now we're going to go and talk about the sites a little bit. I mentioned that we're looking at 2 different sites. We're currently calling them the north and the south site. The north site is the yellow cab facility. So you may have seen our signage at both these sites. There's still yellow cabs at the yellow cab site. At the south side is is right by the Burnett Transit Center, the metro line, and is what some folks in the community might call Hardy Yards. And this is just some overview aerial shots of the north side. So we have an understanding of the site we're talking about there. And then here's the south side, an aerial view of that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alex from Asakura Robinson, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the community engagement process and how we're collecting your feedback so that we can incorporate it into that no flow that I mentioned. Alex?
Thanks, Jeremiah. Sounds great. So we have been working with the city at Asakura Robinson. We're a local Houston-based firm that has been working on trying to help with the community engagement process for this project. And so a couple of different ways that we and the city and the land bank have been working to inform the community include working with community partners to make sure we can inform and spread the word. And I know you all are in the office of one of those partners today, so we're really grateful for all the support we've received there, in addition to from the council member's office and many others. As Jeremiah mentioned, there's signage, and so there's signage at the two main sites to make sure that the immediate neighbors for those sites are aware of what's going on and can make sure that they can contribute, or anybody who drives by on a daily basis. There's also been signs put up at major intersections and other places when these meetings are imminent to make sure that others can get the word. And we've also been, the HCD, the Housing Department, has been working on social media as well for this to make sure that folks are being informed via social media. So some of the different things we have for people to be directed to in terms of engagement include obviously the meetings and types of meetings you're at today, but we also have something called a social pinpoint website. And that, largely because we're still coming out of COVID, we know that a lot of people also just can't always make these kinds of in-person or sort of timed meetings because of different conflicts you might have. And so trying to make sure that there is a mobile-friendly online option that is bilingual and that provides a variety of ways to give feedback on the projects, including a map tool, a survey, and an ideas wall. And mobile friendly was really important to us because we know that not everybody necessarily has great internet in their homes, but most people do have access to a smartphone that they can use to access this kind of website. So if we look at the next page, this is a look at the website as it looks on a computer. This is a look at the ideas wall component. The previous slide was the map component. So you can see some of the different ways in which people are able to give their feedback, whether it's through a survey, a map, or the ideas wall here. And that's going to be something that's available to you all, I believe, at this meeting afterwards if you want to put feedback that way. So Jeremiah, I think, is now going to give a quick demonstration of the social pinpoint. Are we waiting until the end, or are we doing it now, Jeremiah?
We're going to go ahead and show everyone here and virtually what this tool looks like and how to access it. For everyone, we do have a landing page here. Having to kind of work a little bit sideways. This will have all the information, high-level information about both sites, right? And also additionally upcoming meetings. So that way, if you want to let your friends and family know, they can attend. Like I said, a little more information, some flyers for if you are inclined to print things out. And then you'll see both on the top of the page and on the bottom a link to the social pinpoint site, which I've already loaded up here. And it's this tool that you can use to leave your feedback outside of these meetings. So it's as simple as clicking one of these icons up here, dragging, letting go, and then you have a comment box. And you can either leave your own original idea like this, or you can interact with other ideas that people have left. So for example, I'm going to go down to the south side. You can see these are all real comments people have left. And this individual took a picture, left a comment about what they left. They mentioned that this is a nice site to take pictures from. You can like, dislike, you can share on social media, and you can join in the discussion and leave additional comments. So it's a pretty versatile tool, fairly easy to use. You don't have to create an account or anything like that. And you can leave as many comments as you would like. We also have a survey. If you click over here, just a few questions that I won't read all the way through in the interest of time, but it's only 3 questions and you can submit your feedback. And we also have this idea wall. When you click on this left tab, you have to do one more click. Takes just a second, but it's very reminiscent of a Facebook wall. So you can see the comments that the folks have left. You can like, dislike, or leave your own additional comment there. So overall, it's fairly straightforward. Like, again, you don't have to have an account, sign up, and you can leave your feedback at your leisure after this meeting as well. So if that's it, I'm going to pull the presentation back up and we'll wrap up, and that way we can get to the fun part of hearing what you have to say about the Near Northside. Okay, go ahead, Alex.
All right. So the last thing in our engagement section here is just asking all of you to make sure that you share this information and the fact that this website and these meetings are available with other folks in the neighborhood. We want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible and getting as much input as we can to make sure that this is really an inclusive process. So that's the link there to the project website and social pinpoint. You can certainly receive that again this evening if you want a reminder. And community meetings, information, if you've signed in, information is going to be shared with you by email, but also check out the Housing Community Development Department's social media for updates on when other meetings and things are coming up. So there's lots of ways to keep getting information and sharing it about this process. So if we go to the next slide here, we're going to talk through five key questions that are forming the basis for a lot of the input we're trying to gather about this project. Great. So the first question is designing in context. And this is really about what characteristics really give a Northside home its look and feel. What are some of the common factors here? And so here you can see a selection of homes that are all around the Near Northside that we've looked at of varying sort of types, but that all have some common things like maybe color or trees or other things that might form some of the common characteristics. So thinking through with you all what that really looks like and what types of things we want to see that will really make a new development feel like the Near Northside. So the second big question is about, and then we're gonna have to scroll on the online one to.
Oh, it didn't move over again?
Yeah, so it's not like in presentation mode somehow. So it's not moving with there we go. So density and good design is the second big question. So, one of the things that we're thinking about for this work is that really thinking about what's possible with these two sites and how much we can enable these sites to benefit community. So, the Near Northside is a great location. It's right next to downtown. It's very central within the city. And so that tends to be a very expensive place to purchase land and build homes. And housing prices and the cost of construction is also increasing over time and has increased a lot over the last year. So this is one of the main things that we're thinking about is kind of how can we, if we're going to actually spend a lot of funds on acquiring these sites, how can we make sure they benefit as many people as possible? And how do we think about the opportunity to do something that's a little bit more dense than the typical kind of like single family home with a really big yard on these sites, but at the same time still make it really feel like the place belongs to the neighborhood and like it's a place that really has great design values that don't feel like we've just kind of put a lot of homes in a very tiny space, right? And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. So, I think some of the pictures on this slide, you can see different ways in which neighborhoods have been designed with a little bit more density, but that still feel very neighborhood-like and feel like they don't, you're not talking about sort of like huge, large-scale, high-rise or mid-rise buildings. So that's something else we want to think about with you is just how do we kind of combine a little bit more density with good design values. So designing for connection, this is the next question we want to think about is what residents really need access to. So how do we build connectivity into these developments? Is that about making sure we have great sidewalks and pedestrian environments to make sure that things are very walkable for neighbors and for residents? How do we think about ways in which we can connect to major assets through when we think about cars, right? But we also think a lot about bikes and transit and other major assets that we have that are right near these developments. How do we make sure we're connecting to those appropriately so that residents can really take advantage of those assets we already have in the neighborhood? And how do we think about connecting to assets that are in the neighborhood like retail and grocery stores and other things to make sure that these new developments are able to really support some of the assets that are already there? All right, so designing communal space. We want to think about how green and common spaces that are part of these developments can really add value. And by add value, we don't just mean like monetary value, right? We really mean community value, a place that can really build community. And think about the way in which green spaces, if they're just passive and they're very plain, may not be a place that people really want to hang out. So what are the elements of a green space, whether it's seating or public art or playgrounds or other things that might really benefit the neighborhood in terms of having real, a place that can be really for gathering, in a space that can provide value to the neighbors in different ways instead of just kind of becoming a green space that not very many people use. So this is one example of a green space that's in a place called Sunnyside Gardens. Again, I think this is fairly passive, but it does have things like shade and large trees and other things that start to make it a more usable space. What are ways in which, these places that have a little bit denser housing can still have these really great, can in fact really support these great green spaces that provide really, good community gathering spaces? What are the different elements of that matter? And how do they really reflect the Near Northside as well? All right. So the last set of questions we have for you all is really about, communication. So just coming back to the idea about who else do we need to talk with? Who else needs to know about this that you don't see in the room today or that you don't hear from online? And are there any further events you can invite us to in July now that that the housing department staff could attend to make sure that everybody is really getting the word out and understands what's going on with this and has the opportunity for feedback and comment? So with that, I think we're going to move into our Q&A period and have a little bit more facilitated discussion.
I hope this was helpful for you as well. And I hope that you share that the social pinpoint of anyone in the Near North Side that would like to contribute their ideas. Because again, this is really a development for the Near North Side. So the more authentic, the more ideas we can make it, the better it is for the neighborhood. And that's why we're here. So with that said, I want to go ahead and wrap up. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight.